Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to Red Ice Radio. I'm Henrik Palmgren, and this is the first show of 2017, a new current year, and let's make sure it's the most current one ever, shall we? So we're going to begin this year talking with a friend to my east, Finnish nationalist Tuukka Kuru, who recently spoke at the 612 event in Helsinki. That's December 6th, 612 for Finland's Independence Day. He's a university student and a member of Suomen Sisu, a Finnish nationalist organization. This show was recorded on the 3rd of January while we were away from the main studio, laying around, being lazy, spending some time with family. So we actually just missed, to tie into our conversation, the hilarious nomination of Miss Helsinki 2017, Sephora Ikalaba, a very unattractive black African who won first place as Miss Helsinki just a few days ago, who frankly just won because she was black, a diversity nomination, compared to some of the very attractive Finnish girls who by all objective beauty standards are just much prettier. And it's kind of sad really that they're pushing, some of these girls in this way, using them as tools and weapons in the war on whites. But, this is not a mystery really. Once you look at the panels of judges, it becomes clear why she won. On the panel, you had other blacks, immigrants, mostly other non-Finnish folk, leftists, and other deranged celebrities, isolated from reality as usual. This is yet another example, just another poor attempt at psychological warfare, trying to puncture the extremely unique beauty that many Finnish women have. It's unique in the world, frankly. Before we go over to our guest, let's just think about this for a moment. There are about 1.2 to 1.3 billion black Africans in the world, according to most estimates, while there are only about 4 to 5 million Finnish people in the world. Speaking to the judges again, does concepts such as a minority or diversity or uniqueness even occur to these people? They vote solely on anger and hatred of whites, and in that vein trying to lift out people in their group, or if they're not white, for the hatred of their own group. Also, a reaction to this that's very common is that others in their racial group vehemently defends lifting out blacks or non-white people, especially if it's in a white country, and this is done to demoralize. And then when you criticize this as an attempt to undermine Finnish uniqueness, well, then you're a racist, of course. So let's just fill up the nominations next year with all blacks and all Asians and all Arabs, and they will be amazed at how diverse the nominations are. Why must there be in every single white country people that don't belong in that country, as they are lifted forth above the natives as something special and unique, and of course as a minority, which is simply the grandest lie of them all? This is nothing but an attack on the collective morale of our people. And by the way, in the contest, third place was a Filipino-looking woman, by the way. She had a somewhat of a Finnish name. So they place all the most Finnish-looking girls last in the contest to undermine their confidence as a way of saying, they're not pretty enough, and in their own country of a minority, globally speaking, they're not good enough. So next, as an experiment, shall we, let's put white women on a beauty contest in Congo, Nigeria, and Somalia, and let's see what happens. Naturally, they would resist the colonization and the racism that this would entail, correct? But at the end of the day, we should not be disheartened by this kind of obvious culture war and these kinds of activities. It's not only hilarious, a joke, it is not actually going to hurt our point of view or our arguments. You think less people will realize the blatant hatred of white people, the folly and problem of globalism and multiculturalism, or the dismissal of the unique beauty that white women have? Of course not. Everyone can clearly see that this is done out of spite, as a middle finger, be it to Finns, Swedes, English people, Germans, French, wherever there are white people. And this is done out of hatred and jealousy of us. So I hope we'll see more of this in 2017. So let's welcome it with open arms and have a good laugh about it, because the harder they push this stuff, the more people will see it. So with all that fun bullshit out of the way, let's go over to our guest and talk about some of the other things that happened in Finland during 2016 and how things are looking up for the new year. Well, Tuukka, thank you for coming on the show. It's great to have you with us. You, of course, did a good speech at a very successful torchlit march in Helsinki. That was on the 6th of December. I don't know exactly how many were there. I think it was about 3,000 people or so estimated. Really good celebration, if you will, of the Finnish Independence Day. I'm looking forward to talking more with you about Finnish nationalism, how things were in 2016, and then, of course, looking forward into the new year, 2017. But thanks for coming on the show, Tuukka. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
You bet. So let's talk a bit about the torchlit march that you guys held in Helsinki. I think this is the third year in a row that you guys have been doing this, and it seems that it's just getting bigger and bigger each year. Is it 612 that's arranging these? And tell us a bit more about what 612 stands for, Tuukka.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a more or less independent group of people, but most of them are members of Suomen Sisu at the moment. So basically, Suomen Sisu is making lots of cooperation with the 612 group, and for example, those torches they were using in that parade, it was paid by Sisu. So basically, it's members of Suomen Sisu, but it's not under the Suomen Sisu officially. But it's a strictly nationalistic group, and the meaning of that demonstration is to have some kind of way to spend Independence Day with nationalistic people and with nationalistic teams. Not just, as you can know, those secular civic nationalist ways, like Finland has always been multicultural, so that's why we have to defend the multicultural and tolerant values or something like that, like they are doing now.
Tell our audience first about what Suomen Sisu is. Is that a political party?
No. It's more like a what's the correct term? It's not political party, but it's group where there's lots of people from different parties. I think the only that doesn't have members in Suomen Sisu is the Swedish party, Swedish People's Party at the moment. But mostly the highest rankings in Suomen Sisu are true Finns activists, or nowadays it's Finns party. It's the Eurosceptic and nationalistic party, which is now in Finnish government. So it's basically a group where there's lots of people from different political parties, but the most high-ranking ones are in true Finns party.
All right. Well, we could talk more about that later in terms of the how the environment is and everything else. But tell us a bit more about the march first. As I said, I think it's the third year in a row that's held, and I think you guys celebrated now in 2016, the last year here, when the new year now, but it was the 99th year of independence, correct? So you guys are coming up next year, or 2017. It's going to be the 100th year anniversary, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, and that's why I think the march is going to be one of the largest happening for decades, in Finnish political history, because of course it's 100 years, it's a big number, but at the same time our team in official independence party is together. As you can understand, the meaning of together means something like together with all the people around the world, like multicultural society. And we have a specific government, what's the name, like government board, and they are the one who are designing those parties, that independence party. And there is some members from Finnish church, especially the left-wing priests, and there is also communist hip-hop artists. So it's like really horrible group,
right?
And they have 22 million euros to spend for that independence party. And there was a really big Ulapalo scandal, in Finland, because they publish some data about destinations they are going to spend that money, and 50,000 euros was put in project named Redefining Finnishness.
Nice.
Yeah, 30,000 euros for coding bus to Africa. and 80,000 euros for refugee. It was a project named Refugee. And so that's why I think it's a good thing, because most of the Finnish people are really moderate, and outside of the big cities, like in every country, they are more conservative as the political elite or the biggest media outlets. And when they see their Independence Day, that is usually somehow connected to military history, like Second World War. Every Independence Day we have the iconic war movies that we used to play every Independence Day.
Yeah.
And now everything that will be replaced with multiculturalism, being together, with sexual diversity, ethnic diversity, diversity in every way possible.
Right.
And most of the Finnish people know that, during 1980s, even in the early 90s, we were a really homogenic country. Almost 97% of the people were Finnish origin. We didn't have this kind of multicultural experiment before the 90s. It all started so much later than in the most European countries. So that's why we know exactly. We have empiric evidence that there was life even before the multicultural Finland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I looked at some genetic data a couple of months ago, and I guess it was from the Karelin kind of area, which was kind of a border region between Russia and Finland. But in that portion of that land, I think it was like 98% of the people that lived there were still homogeneous, meaning they were genetically similar. I think even Finland is a fairly high number in genetic similarity if you compare to many other European countries. In other words, the immigration, multiculturalism, and all these kinds of issues haven't really been a thing in Finland for many years. It's, as you say, it started like in the 90s. What is some of the history of that? How did things begin to change? How did they promote this to you guys? Is it the same as in all our other countries? We're getting the same, propaganda on TV and the radio and the newspapers are writing, or was there something different in Finland?
Well, I think the biggest difference was that Finland was never a free market economy in the correct meaning of the word. Of course, we had trade deals with other countries, but it was really protective kind of trade. They used tariffs, and they were controlling the movement of the money and movement of the workers and so on. So it was kind of difficult to bring lots of people in a short time to Finland. For example, we didn't have this Gastarbeiter system like in Germany,
right?
That they took hundreds of thousands of people all around the world for their needs, for the factories. We didn't have that. And after the collapse of the Soviet Union, everything changed, because in Soviet Union there was Somali people who were, the supporters of the communist regime in Somaliland. And they were refugees because that communist system was not a really good one. It was overthrown by Islamic forces.
Yeah.
And those people, when Soviet Union collapsed, those Somali people came to Finland. And it was of course, we had some people with foreign background even then, but we didn't have experience on African people or Middle Eastern people that much. Only in the, I don't know, maybe in the capital city. I have heard many times stories that during 80s when if someone outside of Helsinki saw a black man on the street, they usually, stop the car.
Right.
And they were amazed. Oh my God, black skin. What is that?
Yeah, a natural reaction, right? I mean, there was the same thing when white people go down to some of these areas in Africa that I've never seen white people. They behave the same way, right? They look, and it's something unique. It's something different,
Yeah, and when those people came, we didn't have experience how to integrate them on the system or what we can accept from about those people. So we had this so-called skinhead problem during 90s, and it was also the worst time for Finnish economy. It was completely, I want to say, for 5 to 6 years, it was all the time annual decrease of the economy. Lots of people were losing their jobs. Many companies fell, and it was a really difficult start for Finland, because now after the Soviet Union, they had to adapt the free market system they didn't have before. So that's why we had lots of factories that was not competitive in European standards. And at the same time, when we were having these problems, those people from Africa started coming to Finland. So you can understand there was lots of violent fights between those people. But when we solved our economic problems for a while, it started, golden era. There was jobs, there was some money to spend, and those people who came to Finland, they were not only Soviet-related anymore. They were like part of new modern Finland, which is like as multicultural and innovative, as diverse as every Western European country. We were trying to imitate them, be like a modern country, because we were somehow ashamed because we were so peripheral, backwards country back then.
Right. Yeah. So that started changing. I think, just looking at Wikipedia for what it's worth, under immigration to Finland, it says as of 2011, there are around 140,000 foreign-born people residing in Finland. Obviously, that's higher today. This is 6 years ago now. But what is it like there? The population is, what is it, around 5 million now in Finland total?
It's about 5.5 at the moment. And, the increase is coming from the immigrant backgrounds, because their fertility levels are much higher than the Finnish people. But still, those are the total numbers of people with foreign background. It means non-Finnish. But the biggest ethnic groups in Finland, the minority groups, are Russians and Estonians. So people around the Baltic Sea. So it's not that bad, actually. Doesn't mean we have 140,000 Africans.
Exactly. Yeah. So how would you compare it to what you know about Sweden? Again, I don't know if you've been over and visiting, and obviously you can just get part of the picture reading, mainstream news and everything else. But I'm sure you're keeping an eye on your neighbor to the west and the insanity that goes on over here in Sweden. So how would you say generally that it compares to how Finland compares to Sweden?
Well, I think the difference is that in Sweden, even you go to Norrbotten, the northernmost part of Sweden, you will face lots of people with different backgrounds. Syrians, Iraqis, people with African origins, even in the northernmost part of Sweden. Not that much, of course, but still some of them. But in Finland, the situation were pretty much that almost everyone with foreign background, especially the most exotic ones, they went to Helsinki or Turku or Tampere. Even they were temporarily they were living in smaller cities, in asylum centers, and so every time they moved to Helsinki, or most of them. So that's why most of the Finnish, even the big Finnish cities, don't have that much population with immigrant background, because most of them go to Helsinki. But everything changed in 2015 when 32,000 people came in 6 months, or it started in August, and it was over 30,000 people in just a couple of months. Usually we have 3,000 people in a year.
Yeah.
And it changed everything, because we had number of people enough for the little or average city in Finland, and we had to somehow feed them and put clothes of them and give them roof above their heads, and so that's why even those little towns and cities which have never faced people with immigrant or foreign background, and they were forced to live with those people, and it started the backlash. People in Helsinki are not that strongly opposed. They don't fight against the immigration, maybe because Helsinki, as most of the capital cities in Europe, have always been somehow multicultural in the way. So it's normal for them to see people from exotic locations. But in northern Finland, central Finland, it was completely shock. What are these people? Why they are behaving like that?
Yeah.
And there was this Molotov cocktail attacks and that kind of stuff. And in many cities there were fights between the refugees and the Finnish teenagers.
Yeah, what was that town? I was reading about that a couple of, I think it's a few months ago now. There was specifically in one city, and I forget, or one town, I forget which one it was. But it was quite some dramatic footage that was coming out of there. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
I think you mean Forssa.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Forssa, that's right. So what happened there?
Well, the basic stuff. When there is, the Forssa itself, it's kind of small city and with kind of low income. So it's not the best place to put people, the young people from Iraq, in that kind of place. And I think there was something like those Iraqi men were flirting with the local girls, and those girls felt that it's sexual harassment, and they were telling that thing to the local boys, and well, you can easily expect what happens. So there was gangs, there were refugees, and there was Finnish youngsters. But Forssa is not the only one. It happened in kind of many towns and cities. But usually it has the same kind of story, that somehow the youngsters wanted to protect their city or protect the Finnish girls or something like that. And the refugees were fighting against racism in their point of view.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've had plenty of that in Sweden. We still have, of course. They're covering all that up. One of the things I remember from when the migrant crisis kicked into high gear, the footage I saw coming out of Finland was that a lot of the people, we call them refugees, but they're economic migrants in some cases. They're jumping on the opportunity to get a better life or whatever, but and getting something out of these very wealthy northern European countries that have a big welfare system and all these kinds of things. But anyway, many people that came up to northern cities and towns, they were basically refused. They didn't want to live there, right? They wanted to go back to Helsinki. They wanted to go back to Turku. They wanted to go back to, same thing in Sweden. They wanted to go to Malmö, where the rest of them were. And it seems, at least in Finland, they weren't as successful placing many people, way up in the northern regions. Isn't that correct?
Well, we had some temporary placements even in Kolari. It's then northernmost Lapland, but those people were not happy. They were saying that it's like more or less concentration camp, because they were able to visit Rovaniemi, and they had even bus to visit Rovaniemi. It was something like 10 euros for them. It's nothing from Kolari to Rovaniemi for having some disco time, as they said.
Right, yeah.
But it was not enough, and they had only 2 days for a week doctor available for them. It wasn't enough, because they were saying that we have spent so many thousands of dollars to get here, and now we are having this kind of like Nazi stuff. We are going to face, there's not any girls, we are not having any pussy, there's nothing to do in this crappy town.
Right.
And some of them even said that they will go back to Iraq because Kolari was so bad. And we have some webpage named Migrant Tales, and it's a webpage where people with immigrant background, they can tell this or share their stories about racism and everything they have faced in their life. And there was lots of articles about Kolari, and they used the name concentration camp. It was that horrible to live in the town where is 2,000 people. It was concentration camp for them.
Oh boy. Well, why did they leave then? I mean, Christ's sake. I mean, and this should of course be incentive for them to go back, right? And I don't know if many did. I know in Sweden the statistics, I don't actually know what it is, this year or the last couple of years, but previously when I read the numbers, it was basically that of the 100%, or what was it, maybe 40% of the people that came in actually ended up leaving again because they were not happy. Maybe that number is higher today or lower, I would assume, because of because of the situation. So many people are pouring in now, so they're they want to jump on the bandwagon. They want to get on the that train, if you will, before the potentiality of the doors being closed. But nonetheless, do you know if many of those that do come to Finland and try it out, if you will, they end up, as you say, they leave again because they don't like it?
Yeah, there was a couple of thousand of them which actually left the country. But, we have this kind of statistic fraud or statistic problem that statistics show that most of those asylum seekers are not granted with asylum because they don't have any reason to receive that. And people usually think that, oh, that's great, at least 70% of them will go away from Finland. And that's not the case. Even now, we have about 4,000 people who are living underground, and Finnish police don't have any clue where they are living at the moment. And we have lots of cases where those people who have the negative result, they leave the country, they go to Sweden, and they try to apply for the asylum. And if it's not working or if it's too slow, the procedure, they will come back to Finland with different identity. Yeah. So they are just sailing from Western country to Western country, and they are just finding the easiest way, to come to find some easy money and good apartment and some ficky, if you know what I mean.
Yep, sure do.
And when this all started in Finland, it was in August. In Sweden, it happened, I think, 1 month earlier or something. It was the summer.
Yep.
The Swedish Red Cross was actually sending those people to Finland. I was on the Swedish side in Haparanda, and there was one member of the Swedish Red Cross, and she had even translator with her, speaking Arabic, Urdu, all that kind of languages. And she was telling how to get to the Finland and which how can you get to Helsinki and other destinations you want to go. And when we start filming that woman, that you are doing illegal work, you are sending illegal immigrants to Finland, and she said she will call the police if you continue recording her. Of course, it was public place, so you can record if you want. But it was happening. The Swedish Red Cross was actually sending those people or helping those people how to get to Finland. And those Muslim organizations, you know better than me, but I have a couple of Finnish activists who are living in Sweden, and they said that the Muslim organizations are helping to send those people further north to the Finnish side.
Yeah.
They were buying the tickets and giving them food and translating the manuals for them and stuff. So basically it was the Swedish government somehow, or at least those Swedish organizations that actually sent those people here.
I wonder why that is. Is it just that they want to, Finland in that regard is more of a kind of, how do I put it? It's a country that doesn't have as many immigrants. It's more maybe a chance for them to get what they want or something, or is there another reason why they would be sending them to Finland as opposed to letting them stay in Sweden?
For the Swedish people, it's easy to answer because 32,000 people is kind of expensive. So if they want to go to Finland, of course, you should help them to get to Finland. Otherwise, you have to pay for them. But the reason why especially Iraqi people came to Finland was that we had the lousiest policy on Iraq. We had this possibility named secondary protection. It was not even the primary protection. It meant that if you are coming from the country that is too dangerous to send you back, you are granted with asylum. And Finland was one of the only countries that actually had that kind of option. Even Sweden didn't have that kind of.
No, we did for Syrians though, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and we had the same with Iraq.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that means that the door was open to them, so they took the opportunity, and somehow, of course, they found out about this. I don't know if this was open in the I don't know who telling them. I mean, a country at war, and the word spreads. I guess they find out that it's like, oh, go to Finland because they will let you in no matter what, right?
Well, the biggest reason was that our prime minister, he said in the Finnish public broadcast that he will give even his apartment for the refugees.
Right. And did he?
He said he will give placement for 20 refugees in his apartment because it's our humanitarian duty or something like that. And that article was translated in Arabic and it was published in Iraqi newspapers. And in that news article, it even said that, oh, Finland, the land of the beautiful woman, land of the opportunities, land of the money. Yeah, I have seen that article. And it was, I think, 400,000 people read it in the first week or something.
Jeez.
That article. Yeah. It spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
And it was one of the reasons why especially Iraqis wanted to come to Finland. And I even heard a rumor that even some towns completely emptied because they want to go to Finland. And the funniest part was that in Kempele, which is the home city for our prime minister, it's a city of 17,000 people, it's a small city. And they had asylum center, and 2 Afghani refugees raped 1 local girl in that city. And there was some rumors that that girl was somehow related to the prime minister.
Right.
Somehow, I don't know. And after that, it was the next day, following day, when they had some kind of a crisis meeting. And a couple of weeks later, that asylum center was completely vanished. It was not anymore in the Kempele.
Right.
Yeah, and those guys were, those 2 Afghani boys, they had lived in 2 weeks only in that center. And this happened. And after that incident, the prime minister said that my apartment isn't available anymore. Not because of the immigrants, but because of the bad condition of the apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? What would you say though, in terms of for those who don't know, how would you describe the threat to the Finnish nation today? I mean, we can, of course, talk about immigration, multiculturalism, but there's other components within the discussion. I feel in a way that. That's important to tie in. I feel that we here in Sweden, of course, we suffer from maybe a lack of appreciation for history and our own culture. We, to a certain extent, have become very materialistic. It's just everything is commercialized. Maybe even atheism to a certain extent. Many people don't believe in anything anymore. Those are aspects that contributes to, you have young women on the street standing around with refugees welcome signs, and he makes them feel good. This whole endeavor to them is almost like a spiritual experience that they're helping somebody. It's an enforcement of their belief in egalitarianism, etc. Is it the same, generally speaking, in Finland? Would you say?
Well, to some point, yeah, of course. We are part of the Western Hemisphere. We have all same feminist refugees welcome. Finland or Sweden or Estonia has always been multicultural, and the same arguments in every country. But I think the difference is that why Sweden is so bad when you're comparing it to Finland is that because Sweden hasn't been in war in 200 years so far.
That's correct.
Yeah. And when there's long time of peace, it means that people will think that peace is the normal way of life. It's like something you don't have to maintain. Or being independent country, it's not something you have to maintain actively, or it's your duty to do something for your country. And for Finland, it's kind of different because we still have war veterans, lots of them, who were fighting for the independence during Second World War. They were fighting against the communism, and even now they are seen as war heroes. We have a really positive picture about Second World War. Even we were you know, fighting alongside the Germans at the time. We don't have this kind of guilt about the war. We are still thinking that it was completely justified what we done.
Yeah, because you were on the front lines. I mean, this is an important aspect when speaking about Finnish independence, because you were under Swedish rule from about 1250 up to 1809, and then of course it became the Grand Duchy of Finland, ruled by the Russian Empire in a way. And then when they turned commie, when the Bolshevik mass slaughter began, after that point in between 39 and 40, that's when you were fighting the Winter War. Finland were holding back the Red Menace. And yes, I know that there were actually a lot of Swedish volunteers. There were also a lot of intelligence work and services that were offered to Finland from Sweden, especially when it came to, code breaking and radio surveillance of the Reds and stuff like that. But it means, as you say, you were on the front lines of having literally the Red Menace on your doorstep, if you will, and that kept you in a different kind of environment maybe than us in Sweden.
Yeah, and even the worst decades, I think, for Finnish right-wing or Finnish democratic system was during 70s, when we had this rise of the radical leftist forces, the pro-Soviet student groups. They had lots of power in media, especially in universities. We still have the same communist professors in some of our universities we had, who were studying during the communist times. It was kind of same as in United States, this cultural revolution.
Yeah.
But even the worst, those worst decades we had, it was not mainstream idea that Finland was fighting against wrong enemy. Never. Some radical students were thinking that those were capitalist slaughters, those are war veterans. But it was never mainstream idea. And so long when you have this idea that you must maintain your independence, you must, it's your duty to do it, you must sacrifice something if you have to, as our grandparents had to do. And that time may come on the future again. We don't have illusion that everything will be good. So maybe that's the one reason why the mentality is somehow different. In Europe, about 73% of the Finnish people are ready to use weapons to protect their country. And it was the highest in Europe, this kind of Gallup they made.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
For example, in Germany, it was 17% only.
Yeah.
And it was one of the lowest in Europe. And when you don't have the idea of duty, you don't want to use weapons to defend your country. So it's easy to understand why that country, there's nothing. There's not any reason to defend it. It's like complete apathy.
Yeah, there's nothing to defend. They don't even think of themselves as a nation, as a people anymore. So that's an important point, that there has to be a will there to defend it. And I think that was one of the themes as well in the march that you guys had there on the 6th of December, that it was a veneration for the heroes that defended Finland. I think you ended the march at one of the cemeteries, right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah, especially the one where war veterans and even the Marshal Mannerheim.
Yeah. That's right. And Mannerheim, of course, he was the one who was responsible for winning the Winter War, right?
Or I don't know, was the Mannerheim himself a really good commander, but he was the guy who said never surrender. He was more like some kind of rock, some kind of wall of that. He was keeping up the will to fight. I think the symbolic meaning of Mannerheim was the most important for the Finnish soldiers or Finnish army at the time.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about how you view 2016 and some of the good things that happened in Finland, because we've saw a lot of progress in many other European countries. Again, just to go through this for those who've been living under a rock, but Brexit, Trump, we've had the Italy referendum with a no vote on it. There's been many other signs in many other countries. Again, take it or leave it, but we had a rise of popularity for the Sweden Democrats, for example, in Sweden. Many other nationalist parties are on the rise. How was 2016 in Finland, would you say?
Well, like in every country, there was good elements and bad elements. But especially during this year, there was, how can I say, the biggest demonstrations against the refugee crisis were 2015 and not 2016. There was lots of demonstrations even in 2016, but they were not as big anymore because it was only during 2015 we had this wave. We had tens of thousands of people coming, and during 2016 only 5,000 for whole year. So most of the people were not interested about the subject anymore. But in another way, of course, after Brexit, we had our own civil initiative for Fix It, but it never received enough signatures.
Oh, it's a bummer.
Because in Finnish system you need 50,000 signatures for the initiative, so it will go to the parliament.
Can't you keep trying on that though? You can do like again in a few months or something, or 6 months or a year maybe.
Sure, but the problem is that it was, our current government. We have Center Party, we have a national coalition, which is like Conservative Party, and then we have these True Finns, which is the most Eurosceptic party you can find in the Finnish parliament. But because they are working together at the moment, there is two pro-European Union parties and only one which is slightly against it. So they have in their government program that Finland will not exit from the European Union, and it will not leave the euro area or anything like that. So that's why even the nationalist party had to say that please don't put your signatures because it will demolish the government.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the problem is that the Finnish people are somehow simple, that when you have problems with the right-wing government, they're usually trying to solve the problem the left-wing government gave to them, and now the Social Democratic Party and the Green Party are on the rise.
Right.
So if the government, if there is going to be new elections and government is going to change, it will be green-red government. So it's even worse as it now.
Yeah.
So there is not any good options for Finnish nationalists at the moment.
How are the True Finns? I guess that would be the party that most people outside of Finland kind of knows about. They've been loud in certain regards. They've done some campaigns. They've spread internationally. But in terms of their level of patriotism, nationalism, etc., how are the True Finns?
Well, it was the party that had really it was growing too fast. It was like all protest, all the energy from the protest from the people, it was concentrated on the one party. If there was some problem with the economy, it was the True Finns. If there was problem with the European Union, True Finns. Immigration, True Finns. There was lots of hope that party will be something different and it will solve all the problems we have. So there were like dissidents from the left wing and dissidents from the right wing who were actually supporting it. And when it finally had huge rise, there was 20% the support they had and lots of parliament placements. And now they are part of the government and they are not able to push nationalist agenda. They are not the most active pro-European Union or pro-immigration party, but still there's a couple of great members of parliament who are really strictly nationalistic, but the party isn't. It's just a platform where it's a couple of good guys. And even now, when they are part of the government, all the ministers from the party are like the easy ones. They are like friends with the current party leader who is not nationalistic.
Yeah, so it's kind of watered down in a way that's unfortunate. It seems to happen in a lot of European countries. They gain popularity and they kind of become, they become more mellow in their approach to a certain extent, which leaves, of course, the people not finding an outlet for the more radical opinions, frankly, in terms of trying to really do something about immigration and stopping that. But, Tuukka, I think we should take a short break here and then continue talking more in the second segment, because there's much more I want to ask you about, both looking forward to, 2017. I want to ask you about some of the other parties in Finland. We can talk a bit more about, of course, how things are when it comes to the soldiers of Odin that was started in Finland, kind of your take on that. But let's just give out some of the details and some of the websites. You guys are, of course, gearing up then for the 100th anniversary of Finnish independence next December. I guess that will be a pretty big thing. I'm sure you guys are starting to plan that already. But there's two, as far as I know, and you can give out other websites here, but there's two for this Finnish-speaking audience, which is, of course, Suomen Sisu.fi, which is the kind of the co-joined group that you talked about. And then I think the other one is 612.fi, isn't that correct? Are those the two main sites we should give out?
Yeah, that's correct. Just use them.
Do you have any personal ones where people can reach you? I don't know if you're on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that.
Oh, well, you can use my Facebook, because I have, I think, 3 or 4 different blog platforms at the moment, so I can't give just one that contains all my articles. So I think the Facebook is the easiest one where you can find me.
Yeah, so they can just search for your name. Send us a link later too, and we can link that up. And of course, you have a YouTube channel as well. That's also where people can see some of the footage from the march this past December. And you have some other. I think you have a show as well, right, on multiculturalism that you run with a couple of friends in Finland, correct?
Yeah, it's like some kind of right-wing pirate radio. So, but that radio show is something pretty special, because we even had members of parliament as guests in that show. So in Finland it's kind of big. Amateur radios normally doesn't have such a class in their guests, but I know lots of people, and for me it's kind of easy to have some great Finnish guests in the show.
Yeah, of course. That's great. So definitely check it out, folks. We'll add a link to it. But stay with us, Tuukka. We'll take a short break and then we'll return with the second segment. So we'll be right back. We'll see you on the other side. For the continuation, go to redicemembers.com and check out the second hour of this show and all the other 1,200 plus radio shows, videos, and live shows that we have on the members' website. We'll also get going with the live show, Weekend Warrior, this Saturday the 14th. More info on redicemembers.com about that. A lot of fun stuff to cover, so definitely don't miss it. We'll return with Tuukka from Finland right after the break, so stay tuned. We'll talk to you on the other side.